A little story involving how I got olive oil from Italy. So, my brother got some olive oil when he was in Italy, and the reason that he was in Italy is because he won a trip there as a prize, a grand prize, you may say, for best employee of the year at his job that he works at. And he learned that he won this award when he had to go fly out to California to participate in a work conference for his job. And that's when he learned about it. And then he gets the award, and then hey, he gets to go to Italy and bring someone with him. And of course that someone was his wife Rachel, who I like, good person. So off to it was Sicily, but let's be honest, I know it's different and everything, but I consider it Italy, so I'm just gonna say Italy. So, and that trip was planned for April of 2025, and so April 2025 comes, and watching, so helping to watch, of course, my nieces for a week, and of course Cooper, their dog, he was there too to had to help look after him and watch him. But off to Italy that they go. Off to Italy they went. You know, I think it would be safe to say that they had a fun time. Just based off of just some of the pictures that Rachel posted on Facebook from their trip while they were in Italy. You know, and it was a Saturday when they flew back from Italy. And of course, we had to bring back Cooper and my nieces back to their house and hung out for them for a bit. And of course, at Ryan and Rachel's house, and we had dinner there and kind of hanging out, waiting for them to come back. And they come back, and it was just after I want to say like 10 o'clock at night that they come back. And we're talking to them for a bit, and then obviously my nieces, they say something to Ryan and Rachel because that's their parents and they missed them. Um, and then, Ryan has his suitcase on the floor and he starts unpacking and pulling stuff out of the suitcase. And then, as souvenirs and as his souvenirs, little gifts to people that he got for everyone. And, he passes them out to people and, oh, here's this for Harper, here's this for Ava, here's this for May, and here's this for my mom, and here's this for my dad. And of course, then he gets to me and like, oh, here's this. I'm paraphrasing it, but he's basically like, oh, here's this for Kevin, so me. And he pulls out two bottles of olive oil. Like one was like a smaller one, and then one was like a bigger one. And that's cool. I like that he did that because I I like to try and do the whole healthier eating thing. I try, not perfect, but for the most part, I feel pretty good about it. I do pretty good. So this is evidence. This is backed up by the fact that I think yeah, it was last year. So the summer of 2024. I go to the doctor, get a physical, blood test, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And what do you know? You go back for the second doctor's appointment to see how it went and get the test results. and the physical too, and everything is fine, like perfect, like your blood pressure and the cholesterol and a whole bunch of other stuff that they're testing for when you do a blood test, and it was perfect. Why? Because for 9 times out of 10, generally speaking, I eat good, I eat healthy, and I don't really eat crap. That's just how it is. 9 times out of 10, generally speaking, I try my best to do a good job and take care of my health and eat good. And it was backed up by those tests at the doctor. So obviously, Ryan, my brother Ryan, knows that I try my best to, eat healthier, which I do. And that's why he gets the olive oil for me when he was over in Italy. Over in Italy. And I like that and I appreciate that. So thank you, Ryan. Thank you for doing that. You did not have to do that. So thank you and shout out to you, Ryan. But also, I have wondered this many times and for some time now, which is how the heck did you get that uh, onto the plane? How did you get that through security to get on the plane? I just don't know about that. How'd you do that? Because I'm surprised that you got you got that through security and you got that onto the plane to fly back home from Italy. It's just like whoa, like how did you do that? I don't know. Maybe the people in Italy, the security over there in the airports don't give two shits about it. Maybe they just don't care about that sort of stuff. Maybe they just don't care. Or they do care and, it slipped through the security somehow or someone screwed it up. Or again, maybe they just don't care. I don't know. I don't know what it's like in airports in Italy. I don't know what it's like over there and how the security is and a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't know what it's like in another country. And more likely than not, that's how it's going to be because I'm not going to another country. That's not happening. I'm not going to sit my butt on a plane for like 10, 12 hours to go somewhere in another country. I'm not doing that. We're not doing that. Because, like, I know there's embassies there, like the American embassy, like you can go to, and if, and God forbid, in some hypothetical scenario, if something bad happens, that you could go there and they could help you out. But I don't want to be in that situation. And on top of that, if you're in a country where they may or may not speak English, not good in that scenario. You're kind of screwed there. Kind of playing with fire, a little Russian roulette. In this case, kind of hoping that you know the person speaks English, because that's not always the case. In a country, something happens, unfortunately, you kind of get stuck for a bit and you need some help, and you go try and talk to someone. It's like, oh, wait, nope, they don't speak English. Me don't speak no English. And it's like, well, yeah, that sucks. That's stupid. You're kind of kind of screwed there. So yeah, no, I'm not gonna get that through security. I'm not gonna fly over to some other country. That's just not it. So maybe I take that back. Maybe Canada. Maybe be you know, I mean outside like Montreal, some French people there, but it's all English there. And, you I would see a hockey game there. because I like hockey. I watch hockey, go to hockey games, stuff like that. So you go to Canada for hockey game. It'd be Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver or whatnot, whatever. Edmonton, just any NHL place. But even then, that's pushing it. I like to keep where I go in America. More specifically, it's like the Midwest plus Florida. I know Florida's not a Midwestern state, but it's basically Midwestern states like, go in and around all over Illinois because I live there and, visiting family and friends all over Illinois and, doing stuff in, grocery stores and go to some restaurants and a bunch of other stuff. And then obviously go up to Wisconsin to see my Wisconsin family, you know, Karen, Chris, Nathan, Caitlin, maybe you see Wesley, who's Caitlin's boyfriend. Good old Wesley. Wesley. But, or up to Minnesota. I've done that many times. It would be the Twins games years ago at the Metrodome and the Mall of America many times. Obviously, uh, Minnesota Wild hockey games, for the Wild. I've done that. And back in 2009, it was a Ohio State bar. Watched Ohio State football there. Interesting enough, they're playing the Minnesota Golden Gophers, so you're watching them play Minnesota in Minnesota. And then that same day, you saw, hockey game, Wild. But the 3 Wild games. And, done some other fun stuff in Wisconsin, too. And obviously, been to Indiana, but, you do some stuff there. But that's like, oh, we're stopping for the night because we're going to Columbus. And, rather than doing the 7-hour car ride, sometimes, we've just stopped about half, usually, you know, halfway there or just over halfway there, somewhere in Indiana, usually in Indianapolis or just past Indianapolis. And then you finish up the drive the next day to go to Columbus and Ohio, Midwestern state. Obviously, been there many times, whether that be for Blue Jackets games or Ohio State or the Reds or, the Bengals. So Blue Jackets games, Ohio State games, Reds games, Bengals games. So going to Columbus, Cincinnati. So yeah, I keep my travel minus Florida basically to the Midwestern states. And I've had some fun times in Florida too, over the years. Like there's Skyline Chili, from Cincinnati, but there's one, well, not there. There was two. I only used to know about like one that was down in Naples, but now I've been to two because there's one in the Fort Lauderdale area. I was recently at back in November 2024. But of course, the one down in Naples, oh man, I've been going to that one for years. Great place. I have a Blue Jackets pennant there. I gave them a Blue Jackets pennant years ago because they had all the pennants from different Ohio sports teams, but they didn't have a Blue Jackets pennant. But of course, I fixed that. They have the Blue Jackets pennant, and that was years ago. And to this day, the Blue Jackets pennant is still there. And every time I'm there, I see it, and I pull out my phone and take a picture of it. So yeah, I really just keep my travel. Basically, it's Florida and then Midwestern states. And also another thing is with the whole security thing, not only I wonder about how did my brother get it through the security in Italy to get it on the plane, but you fly back home to America from another country, yeah, you got to go through customs to check your stuff. Make sure that you're not the people. I'm not even saying that my brother would do this, but it's just this is just the truth. It's just that you fly into another country, you got to do customs, and you got to go through a background check, and they got to check your bags and a whole bunch of other stuff to see that everything you're bringing in is okay, it's safe, and you're not doing anything stupid. So, like when my brother and his wife, they fly back to America from Italy. Of course, you get their bags checked and everything. It's like, how did they get it through that? You think maybe they would have said something because, maybe they don't care about that sort of thing in Italy, but over here in America, with the whole TSA thing, they are very nitpicky about it, where they nitpick you about it, and they're on your ass about it if you have any sort of liquid water bottle or whatnot that is over that limit, or just water bottles in general. Because this has happened to me where I, it was years ago. There was a bottle of water, and I put it in my. Of course, we were flying home from Florida, and you know, bottled water, flying home from Florida. I put it in my backpack, and we get to the airport and go through security, and I stick my backpack. Well, I had like my backpack and another bag, like computer and iPad and tablet and a whole bunch of other stuff. But so I stick that bag in there, and then I stick the bag in there with the water bottle. And oh God, that was an issue. They took the water bottle away from me, and kind of that was an issue. My fault. Didn't mean to do it, but at the same time, it's like, come on. And of course, there is this. I've seen this sort of comment pop up again and again over the years, where it does bring a good, important, valid point that makes fun of the TSA and the logic behind that, the government, which is if you are going to say that, we don't want you bringing on any sort of liquid, you know, whatever, then you confiscate it and then you just like throw it away in the trash where it's just out in the open. Like, why are you doing that? Because if it's that big of an issue, why are you doing that? Or you're just dumping it in the trash out in the open for everyone to see, where someone could take it and use it in a bad way. Or you stick it in there and something happens where it explodes or something causes issues. So that's really that big of an issue. Like, what are you doing? Why are you sticking it in a trash can out in the open for the world to see? If it was really that big of an issue, you wouldn't do that. You would get rid of it in a different way, a more proper way to dispose of such a thing, so that it wouldn't be such an issue to people. Because there is such a thing of doing that, where hazardous material, you get rid of it in a certain way so that no issues come from that. But you know, they don't do that though. But but no, if this water bottle that could be an issue or other liquid, no, 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 well, we got to get rid of it. You can't have it. We'll just throw it in a random trash can. No other issue is going to come from that. So whatever, just dumb logic there. Clearly not that big of an issue. Yes, I know I'm kind of going off on a little rant, a little tangent there. But point being, how did the whole olive oil thing? You get it through the security in Italy. I don't know how he did that, but he did. Get on the plane, and then you fly back into America, and go to security customs and check the bag. I wonder how they got that through, unless you declared or something. How they didn't have a big fuss about that. Ugh. And of course, Rachel, my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, I still remember this. She was talking about it, like when they checked in, they got to America, you go through customs. There was, some issue that they kept my brother and his wife, so Ryan and Rachel, in some room, like a little extra added background check, and they're asking them questions, and they're doing this and that and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I remember Rachel saying this, like, take the olive oil, just let us through if it's like really that big of an issue. But in the end, clearly it was not an issue because they got let free. They left the room and, get through customs, and hey, now you're good to go. You're in America. Go get your luggage and good to go. Obviously, you drive home, you're back home, everything's good to go. So, shout out to my brother Ryan for doing that. You did not have to do that. You did not have to do that. You didn't have to do that, but you did. And now I got to use the olive oil at some point. Of course, got the olive oil back in April of 2025, and I'm sitting here making this video in September of 2025, and I have yet to use the olive oil. My bad. Sorry about that, Ryan. No disrespect to you. No disrespect to you. Gotta use it because I want you to go through all that effort to get the olive oil here from Italy and then not use it because that'd be rude. So we gotta use. Excuse me. So we gotta use the olive oil for cooking. Gotta use it for stuff so that your effort was not wasted. Definitely do not want to do that. But of course, that's not the first time that Ryan has gotten me something from trips that he's done overseas from all over the world. He years ago, geez, it's almost 20 years ago now. It's crazy to think that, but it's true. Early 2010 era, 2010s era. What would that have been? Some two. Well, there was one time. I want to say it was like one time before 2012. Then he did 2012. But anyways, of course, he'd go to like England And there were these pig gummies. There were these gummies that were in the shape of a pig, and of course, pigs are my favorite animal growing up. I had a pig collection of all just stuffed animal pigs all over the place, and I had a pig pillow, you know, some, until May of 2020, and one day, fortunately, it got thrown away and by my mom, and I'm not very fond of that. It is what it is. No disrespect to you, mom, but I wish you didn't do that. But you did. Oh well, that's besides the point. And these little pig candies, essentially they're gummies in the shape of a pig, and I liked them, and they were, I thought they were good. And Ryan, he would at May, he went to England twice, and both times he got me those gummy pig gummies. Like I didn't, I don't even know. I never really even said anything to him about it. Like, it's like I ate the pig gummies, but I never said anything to him about them. So if they were good or not. I mean, they were good, but I never said anything to Ryan about whether if they're actually good or not. He just went out of his way and did it again, and you know, got me the pig gummies. And not food related, but you know, years ago when he went to Italy with Rachel for the first time, he got me a little cross, you know, well, like a cross you wear around your neck, and got like a little, was it like red beads, and then obviously the cross, and like Jesus is on the cross. That's cool, man. And I still have that cross to this day. I have it. I had it hanging up higher on a shelf in my room for a bit, and then that shelf isn't there anymore. And then it wasn't there for a bit, and then I want to say, not, maybe almost a year ago. I think like, wait, start thinking to myself, like, what happened to that cross that Ryan got me? I was thinking about it. It was kind of disappointing. Like, what happened to it? I don't. I know I didn't. I know I didn't lose it, but it all worked out in the end because I did find it again, and I now have it hanging up in my room on a a little piece of furniture where it's like, I don't know how you describe it, but little furniture that you have, and then there's like a little on top of it. There's like a little mini door you open up, and the stuff you can put in, and then you can close it, and then there's a little doorknob on it. Well, I have it hanging up on the doorknob, and it's still there. It will always be there because that's a once in a lifetime thing that it's hard to, unless you're going to Italy, you're not getting that sort of thing. It's very specific. And for most people going to a different country, especially a country like Italy, that's a expensive, once in a lifetime sort of thing. So that's it. Like I that's the only cross from Italy that I'll be getting in my lifetime. That's it. So that's my only shot. I'm not getting another one. So you gotta hold on to that because that is priceless, that is valuable, that is a once in a lifetime thing that you're gonna get. And like, yeah, you can get crosses anywhere. You could probably go to like some sort of store and get one. You can order, like a little cross that you can order online, but one from like Italy, you probably get that one online too, but probably not as this, probably doesn't feel the same, or probably isn't as good as actually going to Italy to get a cross. And it's a good cross, and I still have that cross, and I will always have it, and will always be hanging up in my room. So, so, shout out to you, Ryan, for giving me the olive oil from your most recent trip to Sicily, which I know it's different, but I called Italy. You can agree or disagree with me on that. Oh well, Italy, olive oil. Gonna have to use it. And this has been a little year so far that my brother has kind of been quite the world traveler. You know, of course, went out to California for his job and quickly flew back. Got home at 11 o'clock at night on a Thursday and got got up at 4 a.m. and then drove to my house to go get my mom and I, and we got on a plane to fly down to Columbus for the Blue Jackets outdoor game. I mean, yes, the day before we saw Ohio State hockey versus Michigan, which was cool, but like that's not the reason why you're going to Columbus. Like you were going to Columbus to see the Blue Jackets outdoor game. The best of the best, one of the greatest moments in my life, one of the best sporting events of my life, one of the biggest moments in Blue Jackets history. 94,000 plus were there. It set a record for second highest ever attended hockey game with 94,000 plus and millions of views on TV, new TV ratings for highest rated outdoor game since 2019. So much positive energy and attention for the Blue Jackets and Columbus and the city of Columbus and Ohio State and the shoe and just everything. Just so much positive energy and momentum. It's just awesome. The best of the best. One of the best sporting events that I've been to. Even my brother, who's not much of a hockey guy, like if you give him tickets, he'll go to a game. But generally speaking, he's not really going out of his way to watch a hockey game on TV. But if you give him tickets to a hockey game, yeah, he'd go. He does. But even, he's more of a baseball guy. But even he said that I'm paraphrasing it, but basically said that he thought it was fun and he enjoyed it. That's how good and that's how important and how awesome a big time event like the Blue Jackets outdoor game at Ohio State was. It was that cool. And then, of course, we fly back home to Illinois. And after that, Ryan obviously goes to Italy in April 2025. And not that long ago, he flew down to Tennessee, you know, a little vacation down there with, Rachel and obviously you know, Harper Ava May, his kids, my nieces. Of course, that was a part of their, a religious thing with all their religious friends, Christian, because they have a Christian group that they are involved with and they're friends with and they do stuff with. And this time, the big time event to do is go fly down to Tennessee. And, he Saw the minor league baseball game down there. They're one of the minor league teams, the Smokies, Knoxville Smokies for the Cubs. You got my dad hat, Knoxville Smokies hat. It's a all blue hat, and then the letters KS in red that are outlined in white. He likes that hat. He's been wearing that hat, you know, every now and again. He's good. He's been getting some good usage out of that hat. Then you have your fun down in Tennessee, and you fly back home to Illinois. Well, actually, no. We'll back that up even more. Before that, obviously, went up to Wisconsin, to visit our Wisconsin family for, Karen, Chris, Nathan, Caitlin, twice in June and in July. A surprise birthday party for Kelly, and then obviously Nathan's college graduation party from Wisconsin Whitewater. Then, then to then back down to Illinois, then the Tennessee trip. And of course, he has a trip for Cooperstown out in New York for the Baseball Hall of Fame. That he'll be doing that with my dad. That was a little Father's Day gift that he gave to my dad. That's, late September, so that's coming up pretty quick here. So, he'll be doing that, and that's going to be cool. It's going to be fun. I know he's looking forward to that. And so is my dad. I know my dad's looking forward to that, too. Of course, back in summer 2005. Yeah, that would have been the summer of 2005. And big baseball trip. We went to some Yankees games to see the Yankees play the Twins, and Yankees won one game, Twins won the other game. And then, of course, went out to Boston for a Red Sox game. Who, interesting enough, they played the Twins. And isn't that interesting how it works out like that? That you see the Twins play two different teams on your trip. Usually doesn't work out like that. And obviously, both games were fun. You see the Yankees and the Red Sox, and they play the Twins, and two iconic baseball stadiums. That was cool. Obviously, the Yankee Stadium that we went to, that does not exist anymore. That's long gone. We went to the old Yankee Stadium, not the new one that was built back in 2009. So that was fun. And then obviously went up to Cooperstown, 4-hour drive. I always remember that. It was on a bus. And I don't know, that felt like one of the longest 4-hour car ride I've ever, well, 4-hour ride. It was a bus ride, but it was the longest 4-hour ride that I've ever done. 4 hours is kind of long, but I've had drives like that where it just goes it's quicker, much more, quicker than that. That one, it just felt like it kind of took forever. And I think in part was, I'll always remember this, is like when you're driving from Boston to Cooperstown, or sitting in the bus and you're driving, it's like it kind of felt like it took forever because you're kind of driving out to the middle of nowhere just to get to Cooperstown. That's what it felt like. And of course, Cooperstown was fun. I remember doing that. Baseball Hall of Fame. That was cool, seeing a bunch of stuff there. And they had this really cool store there that had all, selling stuff from every baseball team there. And of course, I like the Reds, so I remember looking at the red stuff and getting some red stuff there. Of course, you know, 99% of the people in my family like the Cubs. You know, my mom, my dad, my brother, you know, so Ryan, and, Doc, Larry, and, so many people. Then there's the 1% that likes the White Sox, and then there's also that same people in that 1% that's the Wisconsin family, Karen, Chris, that like the Brewers. But no, at that store, so like they probably got. I don't think they got Cub stuff though. I know Ryan did get some stuff though. I don't remember. If I had to take a guess, it's probably Ichiro, because yes, he still likes Ichiro now, but back then, like, he was really into Ichiro as in Ichiro Suzuki. I did get some red stuff. I do remember that. So that was a cool store. And overall, the Cooperstown experience, from what I remember back then, was cool. I liked it. And then there's nothing to do with Cooperstown, but we're on the trip. We're in New York. We're sitting in the bus going somewhere. And of course, back then, my dad had a phone. It was like the Motorola, or it's like one of those, like, kind of like walkie-talkie phones. That's not what you call it, but I don't remember what you call it. But that's essentially what it is. That's essentially what you call it. And I remember sitting and there was two modes. Like, you could, talk to someone, press the button, and like it essentially be on like speakerphone, where you could hear it and everyone else could hear it, or you could turn off the speakerphone and you could still do that like walkie-talkie feature, like where you could press the button and talk to someone. And I remember doing that, talking to my Grandpa Fowler on my mom's side of the family, who unfortunately is not here anymore. Wish you're still here. But I remember talking to you on the bus when we were in New York going somewhere, and you push the button on the walkie-talkie phone, but it was not it wasn't on like the speaker, so no one could hear it. But I remember talking like that, and I held it up to my ear, press the button, hold it up to your. I remember that. And of course, the Florida trip, it's going to go there too, and obviously I'll be there as well. So, my brother quite. Oh, and Indiana. He's gonna go to Indiana with Ryan, with Rachel, and Harper, Ava, May, because there is a church down in Indiana, that the church that they go to in Crystal Lake, that helps out with this church in Indiana. So that's coming up pretty quick here, because it's on a Saturday, and like we're gonna have to look after Cooper, because obviously you're not gonna want to bring a dog down to Indiana for something like that. So we'll be looking after Cooper. But the church that they go to in Crystal Lake helps out this church down in Indiana, so they're going to go down there and help out this church down in Indiana. So there's that, and obviously the Florida trip. So like my brother has really been quite the world traveler. so far this year. Really something kind of interesting how it's all worked out like that. But you know, anyways, I've kind of gone on for a bit here, over 45 minutes of just talking, doing a video, talking about the olive oil story and going on a rant about other stuff as well. So I'm gonna get out of here, and I'm gonna stop doing this video, and that's it for now. Done for the day. And again, a little late at night here, so we're gonna stop the video and be done for the day, and we're gonna go to bed and you know move on with my life and stop the video and do something different. Maybe I'll do another video some other time. So, but anyways, I've done enough talking for now, so I'm done. Bye now.